Doing good. Trying to get through it.
You're trying to what?
Just trying to get through it.
Oh,
Through the
nice.
day.
Yep. um, all right. Let's see what's going on here. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep. Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
it.
All right. So from the example, um, I have like in my highlights on Twitter, this is my um basically my setup. It could be nicer. I could tell you how it could be nicer. But this is currently like basically what I use. I use two spots, and depending on how much texture there is on the canvas, these will change within this like radius around the piece. Um, if it's super texturized, like there's some really deep grooves, you might want to pull this towards the camera just a bit to diminish like really hard shadows. But personally, I like decent shadows to show that it's a very like textured painting. But if you
Yeah,
have like millimeter, 2 millimeter depth, it can get pretty harsh and not look great. So I'll kind of like adjust these lights and bring them down and for not as a dramatic angle. But I think that doing these from either side, like almost at a 90 degree from the painting, makes like really crisp. If you can afford and do these with soft boxes is ideal for most people, but I've found that with these spots, it works really well for what I do.
cool.
Um, Then as far as gear, like this, I personally use a Canon 5DS, which is right around like a 50 megapixel full frame body, and then I use a Sigma 85 millimeter art lens, which I've always found the further back you can get, like the longer lens, the better to diminish any type of like depth of field or any like warping on the edges. Like the wide angle lenses will naturally create like there's just natural distortion with the really wide lens. So I have this
Sure.
Sigma art lens for what's that?
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense totally.
And then I put this. I always do like a really high f stop because like if it's like a 2.4 or 4 f stop, there's a lot of there's a very shallow depth of field there, and you can not capture the sharpness. So I always put it like I always set mine at like f16, bring it back, autofocus, and then do a 2 second delay on a tripod so you can hit the trigger and kind of all hands off camera, wait 2 seconds, and it takes the image so there's no like shakiness. And with that f16, like the entire thing should be really sharp. Of course, I shoot full high res raw image, and then bring it into Lightroom. I prefer Lightroom Classic. The other one is kind of made for more like on the go. Um, it's really great for like doing touch ups on your phone and stuff. People who shoot with like Bluetooth cameras can like dump photos right onto their phone and edit on the fly. Like it's great for street photography and like Instagrammers and stuff who are like making photos and putting them up right away. But Classic Lightroom is definitely my go to. Um, So right out the, this is, yeah, this is exactly the shot from that frame we just saw. And I really pull it in right away and check all four of my corners and make sure that there isn't any blur on the sides. So you can see all the way around, like you can even see like the panel lint and like each corner of this is super sharp.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good.
all the way around. Even
Yeah,
the corner of the frame, I guess none of this is in, but like everything is super crisp. So that's
yeah,
ideal. That's looking good. Um, First thing I do in here is um, in the develop tab, I want this thing to be perfectly square. So I use the transform tool and the guided. Um, and I find all four of my edges, I go and map. So I find like each corner. Um, I'm gonna do this on my Mac, which is more precise, but I'm basically following all four edges up this canvas and it will perfectly square out the art. So if you happen to shoot it at a slight angle, obviously you want to shoot it as precise as possible, but
Right.
this will definitely make it so it's like a perfectly square piece. And
Okay.
then you're able to crop if it's a square a 1-to-1, and there won't be any warping or any cutting out of. Should be like perfectly square.
Nice.
That's sick. That's
Yeah, and
cool.
you could check, make sure all your edges, there's no like little sliver of anything from the background. Follow it around, make sure everything's looking crisp.
Right.
Um, which looks like I nailed it with that. And then before I even do any lighting, I always look at my waveform here, the histogram, make sure that like we want, you know, basically the black point to be like the furthest to the left and the waveform, and the white point to be in line with that. So first thing I'll do is kind of like set this, bring this all the way to where you start to see this graph start to pull up, and vice versa. If it was a really bright photo, you would see this whole waveform way on the right side. This was an underexposed photograph, so you're seeing that entire waveform on the darker side of this, because this is like a black to white gradient. Um, so this be like this. You saw this waveform be a lot more balanced across the entire image. Beforehand we were looking at this, and that's why you're seeing a very underexposed image.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So I map it out to where it's nice and balanced all the way across, and that's when I'll start to fine tune any like highlights, shadows, make it really look. You can make it look. Obviously, it's up to you how you want to present your art. If you're really trying to accurately color match, you really don't want to, you know, um, show something different, right? If you're like selling a physical piece of art, you obviously want it to be as true to the physical as possible. You don't want somebody to collect a piece of art because they love the digital and they get the physical and they're like, wait, this is like not as saturated, bright. This isn't as flashy. So just depending on your intentions of how you want to sell the art, I would stay true to this being as color matched as possible. So it helps to like have the painting next to you and really like keep an eye on it and see where certain things are. Each camera is going to be different. Like Canon will definitely oversaturate. Like it's a great portrait camera. Like a lot of the oranges and reds will be very saturated. Sony, I just feel like their cool tones are a lot nicer. I think Sony shoots better, like night street photography, sexy shit like that. Portraiture, I just prefer Canon lenses, but regardless, um, it can also help. I should have said in the beginning to. It helps to. Normally, I put a little white sticker on my easel or somewhere like right in frame, because you can color match the whites immediately like that.
Oh, white
Like,
balance kind of.
yeah, I didn't do that, but if you have like a little white tab here, you can take this white balance selector, click
Yeah.
it, put it right on that white, and it'll automatically white balance your photograph, which is super nice. Here, like
Yeah.
we can say like this is technically white spray paint. We could do it on like this white line, and it'll accurately color match. Um, I tend to just go by what I think the art looks the best as and manually do it, but it does really help sometimes if you struggle to. Like a lot of my work, my earlier NFTs, all of my pieces were just naturally warm, and I look back now and I'm like, fuck, like I don't like the looks of a lot of the white balance of my earlier pieces, so it is pretty smart to just do it accurately and
Okay.
have that little white swatch somewhere within your frame, so you don't have to mess with camera settings and be like. You can also look at the bulb of the spots you're using, and they'll have like a Kelvin number on there, of like what the color temperature is of the bulb, and you can match your camera for the like pretty much any DSLR will have a white balance, which is like it'll normally give all the different stock options like cloudy day, sunny day, fluorescent lighting. There's like all those kind of options. You can do auto, but if you're shooting specifically for this, there's a custom section, it just says K and then a number, like 3200, 3600. You can match that Kelvin number written on the light bulb to what's in your camera and just shoot that. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Um,
Okay. Cool.
so I would recommend that as well. Because that sometimes is the hardest part, is like making sure, like, I don't know how well you can see what that does to these cool tones, but it does help control the blowouts of these like super deep oranges. It just makes it a lot more natural. So I mean, that's shit, man. That's pretty much it. Like, I already think that this is super, super dialed. I normally tend to go on a little bit of the brighter side, especially if people go to print. Oftentimes things will look really great on a digital display, but as soon as you take them to print, they look really dark because naturally there's like, your screen's illuminated, so things will be a lot brighter. So, and I'm afraid that people will collect the NFT and want to just take that and go get it printed, which I have no problem with, but if they take
Yeah.
that raw file and go to get it printed, like, it's probably going to be dark. And unless they're working with a print shop that auto like color calibrates and like does it proper, it probably won't be that great of a print. So if you see this, if you watch this little mark here, this is gonna, as soon as this lights up in this light gray, it means that you're getting true like blown out whites, right? Like, so right now there is no solid true white. Everything is like below that. As soon as you start to overexpose it, that line will pop up, and if you hover over it, it will show you where those blown out whites are. And I
Oh, okay.
and I try to avoid that as well. So I normally expose up right before that becomes an issue. And you can, if it doesn't seem bright enough, then you can start messing with highlights and whites up until you kind of get into that threshold.
Yeah.
Um, and same with the darks. As soon as it starts, as soon as there's true blacks, which will take a while, but it'll show you that as well.
Dang, that's wild. Oh, okay. Cool.
Um, but if it's lit well and shot well, oftentimes I don't even mess with any of this. Tiny little tweaks here
Right.
and there, but if you find any of your art is like really into these high numbers, it's either going to look super digital or it's just not shot properly. And I would almost return to the camera before doing too much tweaking here. But going back, as long as that's your intentions, if you want a really, sometimes I do traditional paintings and it's only going to be digital and I make it kind of crazy colorful because I like the looks of it, and that's the final piece. If I'm doing like stuff for web or things that aren't going to be true to the art, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but just be conscious of that. Um, what else? Oftentimes, avoiding all of this, if you just want to make the darks darker and the lights lighter, like that, these, you'll find like natural curves here help out a lot. So you're kind of like creating a natural S curve where you're making the darks darker down here and the brights brighter up here, but keeping more even midtones. Um, I do that on occasion, small little bumps like this. If I'm not getting enough pop, enough contrast, sometimes I'll see this S curve forming in here. But yeah, I think that's I wonder if any of these would be like, if any of these I had like bigger problems with. It can start to be a problem a bit with stretched canvas where there aren't any lines, with that like gridding out of where my, I didn't have lines to follow in pieces like this. So it's much more just based off of the eye and how you want it to be. Canvas will create this really nasty digital texture when you're doing something very high res and they shrink it down. Sometimes you'll see that like texture that goes over it. So I would export a low res and a high res of any canvas pieces that has a lot of repetitive tooth like this. Can become problematic with digitizing, so much so that I I really stopped painting on canvas because it drove me crazy. Um,
Oh yeah,
I mostly
gotcha.
I mostly do like wood panels now. Um,
Wow. Have you had like any like problems with just like paper or like illustration board or anything? Because that's what I'm kind of painting on is like illustration board. Wasn't sure.
I've been well. It depends if it's like small. I've just been scanning. I love illustration board. I work on it a lot.
Yeah.
I've been working on smaller illustration board because it's can be scanned. You know, this is a scan of
Right.
this particular piece. So if it can fit in a scanner and you can do that, that's great. Then you don't have to worry about crispness or anything. It's bright.
Right.
It scans really clean. Um, so yeah, if you're comfortable working small, I would use it. I would just get a nice scanner with small illustration board and have a riot with that. Sometimes I
Yeah.
do photograph. You know, if it's bigger than a scanner, I'll do the same exact process as I do with the paintings. Um, and photograph. You know, on the illustration board.
Okay.
Let me see.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I've got it's like a 10 by 10 ish illustration board, so it doesn't really fit in my scanner.
Right. Yeah. Then I would just do that. Photograph it, just like I was showing you here with the on an easel with a couple spots on either side, and should be good to go. I'm trying to find the oh, you know what? I think I edited it on my other computer. The piece I just sent to Hyblinks, the guides poster was done on 16 by 20-inch illustration board. These fucking guides, man, they're all over. Um, but yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. And then obviously right here you have that white, so you can just oh shit, where'd it go? You know, if this is straight out of the scanner or photograph, right away you can just select that white and it'll make sure your white balance is correct.
That's cool. That's wild. All right, cool.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll
Love's not letting me.
check out Lightroom for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I would recommend Classic. It's much just easier to dial in, and you can even like where is I normally would do Photoshop for things like this, but there are little like etching tools to easily get rid of um, shit like that. Finding little, smudges and things you can very quickly go around and remove. Um, do some cleanup work just within Lightroom without actually having to go into Photoshop and do a lot of cleanup work. But
That's
depending
cool.
depending on what you're doing, yeah. Lightroom has come a
Yeah, yeah,
long way
no,
in the past few years for a lot of the photo retouching. Normally you'd have to just do color correction and basic things in Lightroom and then do some heavier work within Photoshop. But lately, the more they kind of come out with shit, the more I'm just hanging out in Lightroom doing all my stuff. Um, so yeah,
that's cool, dude. All right, cool. Well, no, thank you. Thanks for sharing that with me. It's like I've been like hitting my head against the wall trying to figure out how to paint or how to take a photo of my paintings and stuff. None of them turned out too good, so that helps a lot.
yeah, happy it helps. Of course, what you did so far looked good. I mean, like I was zooming in on it to see like any harsh shadows or anything like that. It seemed pretty crisp, but I think that following this workflow could help you sharpen it up even more.
But yeah, yeah. No, I went and I got some lights and I was just using my phone
Yeah,
when I those pictures that I was saying, those are just my pictures off my phone, but I mean, I've got a camera that I'm gonna probably go jump into and kind of like use those settings that you told me about. So see what I can
nice.
do with that. But
You can even bulk
Yeah,
do it
man.
too. You can rent some pretty nice gear for pretty affordable too. If you're like maybe once a month, just rent the gear because you have, a dozen pieces you want to shoot and just do it all and return the gear. Like, that's something you could do too. I know a lot of this can be a pretty expensive thing to kind of like pick up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
but the high res and sharp images is pretty important. You know what I mean? So figure out friends who may have one or rent it just to have because the longer you go without how high res of your work, it's like it's a bummer to look back on. I have old pieces of art. It's like, man, I wish I had the equipment to have like a really nice shot of this. It's just kind of like not a great image or poor white balance. I lost the raw files. Like it sucks to go throughout
Yeah,
the years and have all this old art that like looks like shit digitally. um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if anybody else in here has any specific questions. I'm happy to um, dive into anything. Doesn't even have to be trad art related, but if there's anything else on your mind, I'm here for it. But if not,
Yeah, I got a question.
yeah,
How much do you trust like your screen and your eye um, versus the auto white balance of like Lightroom or the information you get?
I do
If that
tweak sometimes. I mean, I trust Lightroom's white balance really, really well. Normally, it's very on point of what it is, but sometimes I do a little bit of tweaking if that messes up the colors that I see. So sometimes, just depending on, I'm so used to shooting on my Canon now that I kind of know what I'm looking for or where to hit that mark. But I think it's a really good starting point, especially for people who like are just kind of getting into it. I feel like you should trust that over where your eyes at. But I also don't trust my monitor, so I do all my editing. It's the stupidest workflow, but I do my editing on my PC because it's bulkier and faster, and then I export it to Dropbox, and then I view it on my Mac monitor and on my iPhone for final approval because that's where I trust the color the most and how it looks. And I think the majority of people have iPhones and are viewing on like Mac screens. And I think they're just better quality in general. So that's the final like proof of, um, like the final image is definitely approved on an iPhone. um, so I kind of need to rely on looking at my histogram, like where my white balance is on in the software as opposed to what I'm seeing on my monitor. It normally hits the mark when I export it out and view it on anything else. So I guess that's it. We can pal world or something. We can nerd out, do some art. I got guides to make. I'll clip this recording and put it somewhere. Put it on YouTube or something and share it, or just pin it into my highlights because I do get the questions a lot. So I appreciate you reaching out, Casey, and coming through tonight to kind of ask the questions and um, putting fire under me to finally make this video.
Yeah, dude. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for answering my questions and stuff. It really helps a lot, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So I really appreciate it.
Well, it'll be saved up. I'll upload it at some point soon. So if you need to go back and kind of watch the walkthrough of what I was doing, it'll be there for you. And obviously, my DMs are always open if you have more questions or anything like that. Happy to go through it all.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm gonna go give it a shot, then I'll send you some images. See what you think.
Sweet.
So cool.
Sounds great. Good to see you, man. I guess Silo's got a gift for you.
Oh yeah?
I don't know. It says it in the chat, so
It's
look out for that.
all right. I love gifts.
All right, I'm gonna kill this recording unless anybody else has last minute questions.
Hey, Waitiko. Hey, Casey. Just want to thank you, Waitiko, for the great tips before going to bed.
I'm glad you caught it. You get some good sleep. I'll post the recording so you can go back through if you wake up and
Yeah,
forgot it
thank
all.
you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Oh shit, Silo. Dude, Silo just behind the scenes makes art all night while we are in Discord. It's amazing.
Dude, that's sick. Nice. I love it.
Where's the
Like extra focused.
let me kill this recording.